A song for all who by making a memory made instead a wish. And far if alone you tread and believe in that memory or worship the garden, then each is an entrance ahead, and home is the garden we enter to feast. In this song we sing of the scent of worlds, as a stranger tells of his travels. And each drag a shadow to the sand, make a toast from below where all are the prone to wonder, to see the survivors of stars or a light where one might fly to the sun. Tonight we'll sleep on rolling waves, drift through sunken coral doors, though bitter storm and mutiny may threaten our weary way. Fear not the ways of winds, for they too seek Atlantis. Lies not far away, we need heed the paths of time. A good many years before then, our tiny village was hemmed in by the strange, almost supernatural cage of storms and vertical oceans. And one or two of the travellers that reached our sanctuary, few and far between, spoke of years of endless roaming like nomads in bizarre surroundings. No Man's Prairie, they called it, a relatively large slice of the planet we did have at our disposal. Left exposed by the fogs a lot of the time and populated by bizarre tentacled worms. Though the creatures were ugly to look upon, they did provide us. I was once even given permission to ride upon one of these bulky but fast hunting machines. The strange man I had guided out of the fogs and befriended was put up in a cabin near our own, and seemed to cause a stir wherever he went, because whereas most travellers from the land ocean were traumatized for weeks and swore never to leave sanctuary, this strange fellow positively closed the door behind you, some may say. Close the door behind you, some may say. If you haven't already lost your key, then you must throw it away. And they mean well in their own way, I suppose. There are many statues in this old tower, many. Most are broken or covered by wild climbing foliage, each with a keeper who once sat atop its shoulder and waited patiently, but who has long since moved in for good and lives inside its head, the way out forgotten. There is a rumour here too, as there is everywhere. Mouths speak and ears listen, for there is life aplenty in the tower. If you listen, you can hear their endless chatter, and maybe even catch a word or two of the forbidden talk. Have you heard the tower looks like a cave from outside? Madness, there is nothing outside. We have everything we need here. Most do not even believe there is an outside. Still others talk of the spectacles, and this is especially frowned upon. There are many of these lost in old halls where venture many a seeker. Spectacles for a statue. Suddenly something is different. There is sight where before had been blindness. Sometimes there is joy, sometimes great sadness or terror. And if you had found your way into the room of the sands and seen the castles of your life, you might well have noticed there a newly erected bridge crossing the moat, all thanks to the spectacles it would seem. And then suddenly they are gone, and there is nobody around who remembers the bridge or the moat, only the spectacles. On a lonely island, missing in the mist, and with as yet no face, a hooded figure traverses the way, a nameless stranger in the gentle rain. Lo, I walk the woods by day, and though as yet I have no face, my hands nurse a dying butterfly. On a lonely island, missing in the mist, and with as yet no face, a hooded figure traverses the way, a nameless stranger in the gentle rain. Lo, I walk the woods by day, and though as yet I have no face, my hands nurse a dying butterfly. Waist deep and wading in dark water. Waist deep and wading in dark water, bravely there to scale a tower interior draped in vines, the stranger arrives. Down in Decibel Valley, there are questions made of answers, and the sea stops to breathe while the way is won. Down in Decibel Valley, there are questions made of answers, and the sea stops to breathe as the way is won. Do these treasures spell the falling of the bird? Curious clues in a kind gallery, reaching for sadness itself, original sadness. So suddenly real, and lying just ahead beyond the breadcrumbs, on, ever on and over yonder where the day is made. Down in Decibel Valley, with questions made of answers, and answers made of the sky. Curious clues in a kind gallery, reaching for sadness itself, original sadness. Curious clues in a kind gallery, reaching for sadness itself, original sadness. Have suddenly become so real, and lies just ahead beyond the breadcrumbs, on, and ever on over yonder where the day is made, down in Decibel Valley. And there was a floating pallet out on the landing where we built the telescope, and grew out of the house like a nail. Tails flinching, cackles cry, and tails fly, tables fly, tables try, your hand befitting marble steps, and if the chairs should die, then around the stage the seated stones will be polishing the sky. Tails flinching, cackles cry, tails flinching, cackles cry, at dawn the mood is sullen, we've yet to prove we are the wooden. As tables fly, tables try, their hands befitting marble steps, and if the chairs should die, then around the stage the seated stones will be polishing the sky. A buoyant year, as slow as any to die, we slow down summer for the sun to see, to hear how liquid the sun seems sleepful this season, this most buoyant of years. And endless is each endeavour, as age returns a hood, as if by magic made of each now lost. And who did unearth the pyramid in that wonderful garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, where one might ask or one might hear, in a word or a whisper hushed and kept for ears? But hope is more than a word, so long lasts the sun when all faces familiar are stung by the one. A buoyant year, as slow as any to die, we slow down summer for the sun to see, to hear How liquid the sun seems sleepful this season, this most buoyant of years. As endless as each endeavour, and age returns a hood, as if by magic made of each now lost. And who did unearth the pyramid, in that wonderful garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, where one might ask or one might hear, in a word or a whisper hushed and kept for groan. For you adorn the topmost window, made of each now lost. And who did unearth the pyramid, in that wonderful garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, returns a hood. Tables try their hands, but are lost. And who did unearth the pyramid, in that wonderful garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, where one might ask or one might hear, in a word or a whisper hushed and kept for ears. But hope is more than a word, so long lasts the sun when all faces familiar are stung by the one. A buoyant year, as slow as any to die, we slow down summer for the sun to see, to hear. How liquid the sun seems sleepful this season, this most buoyant of years. As endless as each endeavour, and age returns a hood, as if by magic made of each now lost. And who did unearth the pyramid, in that wonderful garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, where one might ask or one might hear, in a word or a whisper hushed and kept for groan. For you adorn the top garden where all was the work of the wild, wild ones, where one might ask or one might hear, in a word or a whisper hushed and kept for groan. For you adorn the topmost window with bridges beyond, where to spot a strange sky object, a nightly visitor to one with broken eyes. How many stars did we miss? On those nights we paired amidst the shells, I shall adore you, for you adorn the topmost window and bridges beyond, where to spot a strange sky object, a nightly visitor to one with broken eyes. Somewhere else someone or something was calling, a voice, a story perhaps, he couldn't be sure. Still, the dark has been known to bring all sorts of stories, and the world, an embryo for the moment, feeds and takes its strength from these stories. And the voice calls to all, though few hear it. Do you know what it says? It says, fly again, winged one. This is all it needs say, this is all anyone needs say. Somewhere else, someone or something was calling. A voice, a story perhaps, he couldn't be sure. Still, the dark has been known to bring all sorts of stories, and the world, an embryo for the moment, feeds and takes its strength from these stories, changing in their shape and form, for he is the castle, swift and ever changing in their shape and form, for he is the fairy. Who knows? So the stars return from a journey away where truth is the sand and does build itself into castles, swift and ever changing in their shape and form, for he is the fairy. Who knows what ways they took, or from whence they came? There are only stars, they say, for each of us has a star of our own, and we play when the sun goes down. Now asleep on the doorstep of the castle of dreaming, we've summoned an old friend, that tired old genius, awake at last and slipping through the shadows of a dusty hall on his way to answer the door.